Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, across our beloved Kyber Empire to today's video, the long-awaited, greatest and best free-to-play farming guide for 2023. The hype you guys have had for this guide has been second to none, and I want to thank all you guys. Last time I made this video in 2022, we had over 11 billion likes, 350 billion views, and that's why when we put this guide together, we don't half-bake it. We put the best effort we can because I want this to be your one-stop shop for the perfect guide on how to navigate Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. A lot has changed since the last time I made this guide in 2022, hence the delay with the Crate Dragon Raid, Rise of the Empire. We had to wait for it to settle to really know the best path to put you forward before you make any investments into things that could cost you in the end. The goal of this guide here is twofold. There's going to be a heavy emphasis on getting ourselves to Jabba the Hutt as your first galactic legend, while also aiming for the Executor so you can dominate your opponents. I want to make sure I explain why Jabba and Executor are important and why it's the focal point of this guide before we get started. The reason why we are focusing on Jabba is because he is one of the best PvP galactic legends in Grand Arena, Territory Wars, great on offense, great on defense, needed for so much in Rise of the Empire, needed to do well in the Crate Dragon Raid. We're setting you on a path to make sure you're successful at that. But the good thing is, while we're building up the Jabba, we're also building up the Executor, one of the best capital ships in the game, to make sure you get a nice income of fleet currencies, crystals, and your opponents crying when they can't clear your ships in Grand Arena because they didn't watch the greatest free-to-play accounts and the best farming guide of all time. And the last thing I want to emphasize, besides Jabba and Executor, the Crate Dragon Raid is imperative. Hence, the focus of this guide, while we're building up the Jabba, we're making sure we build up Old Republic teams, Hutt Cartel teams, and by the time you get Jabba the Hutt, the goal is you should have at least 3 top performing squads. A Hutt Cartel team without Jabba, a Hutt Cartel team with Jabba, and Jedi Knight Revenant Old Republic. Since recording and editing this guide, CG just came out with the announcement of a brand new Galactic Legends Leia Organa, as well as a brand new Return of the Jedi Raid. This guide is not going to discuss or assess how to implement that in here because we don't know how good Leia is, we don't know the rest of the requirements, and we don't really know how to go about the raid. But the good thing is, it seems like a lot of the Leia requirements are going to tie in well with the Jabba, Executor, Master Luke core that we're looking at, and even some of the requirements we're discussing, like Piet, will be used in this upcoming raid. But for now, let's focus on the here and now and what we know. With the goals in mind and set in place, let's get into the best free-to-play farming guide for 2023. As we immerse ourselves in this new guide, I want to emphasize there's a playlist in the top right-hand corner at any point if you're revisiting some of these difficult events, like Darth Malik, like the Chewbacca event, Darth Revan, whatever it might be. There's a playlist up there for you to go back in a more updated fashion compared to old unlock guides if you're needing a more up-to-speed recommendation and strategy for taking on some of these difficult legendary events that make your life as easy as possible. So the big question in the greatest free-to-play guide of all time, what is the recommended team that I think everyone should go on with the stage set? And I'm happy to say, I really think Imperial Troopers are the way we're taking this guide as the first baby step into a greater universe. The reason why I'm recommending Imperial Troopers is, one, they're one of the most fun teams in the game. Number two, they dominate a lot of the non-legendary, even some legendary teams in Galaxy. It's a fantastic tool for your dark side territory battles, Grand Arena territories. You're going to get so much mileage out of these guys. And furthermore, on top of that, Admiral Piet is going to be the pilot for something we're shooting for down the road, the Executor. I'm recommending General Veers, which is mandatory for this, Piet Dark Trooper, to get the best bang per buck that you need. However, the last two, I put Range Trooper and Moff Gideon, which is generally the go-to. And of course, you're going to get lots of easy shards of Moff Gideon when you're starting. But if you really want to get some extra opportunities on the board, you could farm Colonel Stark, although that's going to be a little bit further down the road until you get into a good guild. Iden Versio is another one I would recommend. She could be used with Veers, but she also has a great ship. But this is generally the standard team for the Imperial Troopers and the backbone of what we're going to build off of. From Imperial Troopers, basically we're trying to set ourselves up to lead into Commander Luke Skywalker, because ultimately, in order to get Jabba, you need Jedi Knight Luke Luke Skywalker. So hence, the point being here is we're moving from Imperial Troopers into R2-D2. It's gonna take a minute to get these guys up and running because some of these are hard nodes, but you're gonna feel rewarded having them done, ready, in the bag, because we're gonna need them for a long time in the game. Now, in order to get the Commander Luke Skywalker, we have our 5 Imperial Troopers, or you just need 5 Empire in general, to unlock R2-D2. And then once you have R2-D2 unlocked, we're moving into Commander Luke Skywalker. And this is gonna enter yourself into the first journey event that you're going to experience, and one of my personal favorite events for the nostalgic reasons. And the good thing is, once you unlock Commander Luke Skywalker and you have those rebels that you built up to unlock Commander Luke Skywalker, you can at this point, if you wanted to, unlock Emperor Palpatine. You already have the stuff, and this is gonna be fantastic. Using Commander Luke Skywalker to unlock Palpatine's like playing on easy mode. Now here comes something interesting. At this point, I kind of recommend filling in the gap for a moment. This might be a little debatable, but I truthfully think we should take a bit of a break and farm some Geonosians. I'd say you can skip out on this stuff if you're gonna get into a really good guild straight off the get-go that can just get you Wat Tambor and they're able to carry you through Geonosian territories, which is likely not the case for most people coming to the game as a new player. But Geonosians are a staple team in the early game. They're needed for so many different pilots, staple for Geonosis territory battles, and ultimately Wat Tambor. And the earlier you get Wat Tambor, the better. And on top of it, since you're getting Geonosians, you can easily unlock Padmé, even with some low gear Geos. This next segment here is mostly building up bounty hunters. There are a few important nodes, the farm and galaxies, that I recommend the second you see it as a new player, bookmark it, farm it right away. One of those being Bossk. Bossk is one of those ships and characters you want to farm as early as possible, especially Houndstooth, because that takes a while to farm ships in the game. You can bring a variety of bounty hunters into the arena with Chewbacca to unlock him. I'm recommending Bossk, Boba Fett, Cad Bane, IG-88 Dengar, because a lot of these are needed for Jabba or the Executor. So it's nice to just get them done now, but just know you have a lot of options. If you wanted to, some other options I would recommend, things like Grief Karga, Mandalorian are great options to have as well. And we're gonna need them eventually at some point to unlock the Razor Crest. So just know, these are just some suggestions based off optimization for Jabba and Executor, just getting them done earlier the better, but you do have other options on the table if you wanted to. As you're working up to Chewbacca with these bounty hunters, as we said, ships are incredibly important for twofold. There are a few ships I just recommend the second you see them, you bookmark them and farm them. I already said Houndstooth. The second you see it, please do me a favor, don't delay it, making sure you have Xanadu Blood, IG-88 ship, also bookmarked, ready to farm, because those can take a while. And although we're fast forwarding a little bit, eventually whenever you do get your bounty hunter ships up and running, you can unlock the Millennium Falcon. But we're mainly getting the bounty hunter ships, one, because we're moving towards the Executor. We want to make sure we get you those difficult to acquire ships as early as possible, making sure you're going to do well in Fleet Arena as well as the Fleet campaigns. But something that I just want to emphasize, we need to make sure we're getting Zetas into your roster. Now, don't necessarily wait until this point to farm ships. Whenever you start seeing these ships, like TIE Fighter inside of Galactic War, the TIE Advance, Slave One, and even start picking up Razor Crest, the sooner you start picking up Razor Crest shards, the better, because we want to make sure you're getting Zetas. So I'm just going to emphasize at this point, you should already be farming some of these things earlier, but in case you haven't, here's your reminder. We need to get Zetas, and in order to participate in the Zeta challenge, you need the Executrix, which you're basically given, and you're going to need 6 non-capital ship dark side ships at 5 stars to start unlocking Zetas, and eventually you're going to need them take them to 6 stars for the highest tier of the Zeta challenge. And make sure you're farming that Imperial TIE Bomber, sort of like the other ships. When you see it, try to farm it as early as possible. You're going to need it. It's a grind, but it feels satisfying when you finally have it done. Please, I can't emphasize enough, people don't focus on ships. When you farm these ships, I know I'm saying this so many times, if you're farming these ships on this guide, you are set for so much down the road. This saves you months. So if you've been noticing right now, we're not just beelining straight for Jabba. We're building a lot of core teams that I think are going to be helpful for a variety of things out there, for Grand Arena and the many other events that you have to participate in. So what I'm going to recommend right now, and I'm really excited about it, there is a very strong reason to get your Jedi Knight Revan up and running, which with the introduction of the Krayt Dragon raid, Jedi Knight Revan is more important now more than ever in several years now. One of the best teams for the Krayt Dragon raid is an Old Republic team, the Jedi Knight Revan, and basically the requirements that you put together for Jedi Knight Revan and Darth Revan. So I recommend at this point, let's work towards our Jedi Knight Revan, and on top of that, let's work towards Darth Revan. And these again are staple teams, not just for Krayt Dragon raid, but outside of that as well. And eventually, once you get Jedi Knight Revan, one of the best teams for the Krayt Dragon raid is Jedi Knight Revan, Mission, Zalbar, Bas Lashan, and either you can use Jolee or Juhani You got yourself a top performing team, and realistically, at this point, if you have a Jedi Knight Revan team and you take out to Gear 11, Gear 12, idealistically, you probably want to take Jedi Knight Revan as far as you can. You should try to find like-minded other individuals that can try to hit that bare minimum of 250,000 points or so per player, and Jedi Knight Revan should get you the job done and the rewards that the Crate Dragon raid brings. That's another emphasis here. We don't want to keep you in the Rancor raid, the Sith raid, and in case I have to emphasize it, when you have both Revans, you might as well go for Darth Malak. You don't really need to take your minimum requirements that you built up for Jedi Knight Revan and Darth Revan that much higher, so it's not that much of a stretch to get Darth Malak, and it's going to be a nice addition for the Darth Revan team in the end. Now, I want to pause here for a moment. Thanks to the amazing change of getting access to Wampa and Hermit Yoda a lot faster, hit the ground running. When you start getting access to the Guild Event Token Store, I recommend you start farming Wampa first. She's going to be an amazing plug-and-play monster for Grand Arena and a lot of fun, as well as Hermit Yoda. If your guild's hitting that bare minimum of the Crate Dragon raid like we discussed, and you're finally getting access to the Crate Dragon because you're an old Republic, so what are you going to do? Besides keeping an eye out for Wampa, Hermit Yodas, and stuff like that, this is another good stage to kind of build out a few more things that are just kind of sitting there in your roster. When you get Jedi Knight Revan, you already got Jedi Knight Revan, you have Bastila, Jolie, Juhani. So truthfully, you basically have Grandmaster Yoda in the bag. All you might need is one more Jedi, and by the time at this point, you probably got tons of free shards for some Jedi, and then you can plug Grandmaster Yoda in your Jedi Knight Revan team if you want. Efficiency's the name of the game around here, baby. The good news is, you might get there a lot sooner than later, but we are getting dangerously close to unlocking the Executor as really the big first ticket item on our way to Jabba the Hutt. But before we do that, I hope you guys have been following the tips. It's like I said this 10 million times this video. Make sure you've been farming that Razor Crest and Fleet shipments, because now we're going live with Beskar Mando. Beskar Mando's a really fun event. I love pretty much all the requirements here. Technically, if you wanted to unlock Beskar Mando earlier, I'm not going to hold anything against you. You could technically do the Beskar Mando event before the Chewie event, so that way you get Mando, Grief Karga, and then you can use that for the Chewie event too. You can kind of switch those around a little bit. And the good news is too, if it's not evident, Beskar Mando is one of the core important units for the Crate Dragon raid. You can use them with some leftover scoundrels, Hutt Cartel. We got Cad Bane earlier. You might have Canderous. You can use it to still get some decent points in the Crate Dragon raid for another team while you wait for the Hutt Cartel to form together. And at this point, if you've been farming the bounty hunters, their ships, the Razor Crest, you should be knocking on the door of the Executor. The Executor, although not a galactic legend, is a quasi-galactic legend. This should be the first massive ticket item that's gonna feel like you just made a big bang per buck in your roster. And the biggest barrier, truthfully, here is the ships. Razor Crest being the #1 barrier, so make sure you're farming that right away. With the bounty hunter ships that we discussed, TIE Advance, those should all be things you should have been farming. So we're picking up where we left off now. We have the Executor in the bag. We're gonna pick up on our journey heading to Jabba the Hutt. And hopefully at this stage, you're almost done with Wampa and Hermit Yoda. And unfortunately, we gotta get those pesky Ewoks up and running. Let's get those Ewoks up and running so we can get C-3PO unlocked. You're likely gonna need a Zeta on Chief Chirpa, so make sure you budget a Zeta out for the team to make the event as easy as possible, especially if you're trying to do it with low gear. I don't recommend over-gearing the Ewoks for C-3PO as of now. And C-3PO is likely going to be that final piece you need to finally get to Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. And isn't it funny? We have Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker and we have Jedi Knight Revan and Hermit Yoda in the back. My friends, you have a great team hanging out with you. With Jedi Knight Revan and Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, you're going to be able to manage a lot in this game. But now you have Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, and now we can finally take that big leap into our first galactic legend, Jabba the Illustrious One. Now the good news is Jabba the Hutt kind of shares a lot of requirements that you've already built up. Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, C-3PO, Boba Fett. So a lot of the legwork is done. At this point, it should mostly be just getting some of the other characters, Boushh Leia, Skiff-Guard Lando, Kersantin, which very shortly, as of the time of this video, those should be double drop farmable, and especially by the time you're even at that point, if you're watching this as a new player, they'll definitely be double drop farmable by then. One thing I want to emphasize though, the thing that is sticking out here, you don't need to farm this ship as early as a lot of the other ships that we emphasized earlier on, but the Outrider, probably somewhere in the farming process as you're working up the Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker's requirements. You want to get Outrider done as early as possible, similar to Houndstooth and the other things that we talked about earlier on. It's a long farm. It's the most painful farm for a job, in my opinion. You're gonna need it. But we're not done. There's so much more to go in the game, and I want to kind of lead you on another couple of journeys that are very closely similar to Jabba the Hutt. And although you got Jabba, you're just a stone throw away from some other big ticket items, like Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. The nice thing about Jedi Master Luke Skywalker is he shares a lot of the similar requirements to Jabba the Hutt, taking care of a lot of the legwork needed. So I would recommend at this point, let's build up some First Order members to get your BB-8 unlocked. And then once you get your BB-8, might as well unlock Jedi Training Rey. I'm gonna give you guys some extra credit. If you're building up Jedi Training Rey and you want to build one of the best free-to-play powerhouse teams in the game, I recommend adding Zori Bliss to your farm. Right now, at the time of this video, she's not needed for any particular legend events, but she forms one of the most powerful non-legendary teams in the game, easily number 1 or 2 free-to-play teams in the game. You're gonna thank yourself. If you farm her and you throw a Zeta on the Finn lead, you're gonna be crushing it. Although not needed, it's bonus credit. And then once you get Jedi Training Rey unlocked, I recommend at this point getting to Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. The great thing is about Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, as I said, it shares a lot of the similar requirements to Jabba the Hutt. It's gonna build on top of your Jedi Knight Revan team of Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, Hermit Yodas. It's gonna bolster your Commander Luke Skywalker team with the emphasis of Han Solo and 3PO and Chewie. And kind of like the Outrider for Jabba, I recommend don't wait for the Rebel Y-Wing to farm. If you notice you have an opening, likely after you get your Outrider, you're gonna want to have it up and running just to build a decent Rebel fleet. And of course, it's needed for Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. At this point, we got so many amazing characters laying around that could really have some lifter units, as I like to say sometimes. I think we should really build up Starkiller at this point in time. Starkiller is considered a mini galactic legend. Very good on offense. You can use it on defense, beat some galactic legends. If you have that Juhani, you can use them inside of territory wars. But more importantly, the requirements baked into it, such as Dash Rendar, you can use that for all of your scoundrel stuff out there. Mara Jade to make Palpatine really deadly. And then Kyle Katarn to really take advantage of your Mon Mothma. Starkiller has one of the best requirements, and it's not all that hard to get. So I would recommend Starkiller just to have an advantage when you're dominating your opponents, but also making more teams even better inside your roster. Going from Starkiller, this part could change a little bit. The Phoenix had a massive shakeup. Phoenix used to be the first go-to team I would recommend. I don't recommend Phoenix as the first team anymore, mainly because the game has changed. We got to get you to Jabbas, the Lukes as fast as possible, the Executors. Also, they made the Phoenix a lot harder to farm with Hera now being on a hard node rather than Cantina, so it takes longer to get up and running. That was the whole point of Phoenix. You can't really do that now. With the addition of the new Captain Rex for the Phoenix, this could change. However, he's not farmable at this time, but there is some logic if you do like Phoenix and you want to have arguably one of the best free-to-play teams in the game, number 1 or 2 with Captain Rex and the Phoenix crew, which will unlock you Thrawn. But more importantly, I want to get us to the Profundity. It makes sense. Profundity kind of sits in that nesting doll with Luke's, the Executors, the Jabbas. You're already going to have your Outrider built at this point, your Rebel Y-Wing, so you might as well just go for that Profundity at this point. The Relic 9 is going to be the biggest barrier to entry, so hopefully you're engaging in territory wars. Hopefully you're engaging to crate Dragon Raid and buying stuff out of the shipments. That's the biggest thing. If you feel like Relic 9's out of the question, you might want to alter things, but it shouldn't be that hard. By the time you get to this point, you should be able to get some degree of Relic 9, and you only need one for Radis. Or heck, save some crystals, get him out of shipments. We could do even better. Why don't we get one more Galactic Legend in your arsenal? The nice thing is here, you're going to have a lot of this stuff. Then you're going to have the Palpatine. You're going to have Vader just by naturally playing, basically. You're going to get Thrawn. We already have Piet, Veers, the TIE Bomber. I recommend let's get Sith Eternal unlocked. You already got so much done. He's one of the easiest galactic legends to get a hold of, and you already did most of the big legwork. He's definitely on the weaker side of things, but still, having him at this point is another great opportunity to take advantage of your Sith, or beating some other galactic legends like Rey potentially if you don't want to use Starkiller. It's just a no-brainer at this point. Let's get it up and running. The hope is at this point, you're past 4 million, you're already engaging in proving grounds, getting yourself Darth Malgus shards to bolster your Darth Revan team, getting yourself Commander Ahsoka Tano, Maul to take advantage of some of your other stuff. I think at this point, we really should be gunning for it. Jedi Master Kenobi. As much as I want to recommend people to get this Galactic Legend as early as possible, it might not be feasible for people to get into a GOTB ready guild, to get Wat Tam Borshard. A new player coming out of nowhere isn't going to have that luxury. I think this is a good part of the guide to start focusing on Jedi Master Kenobi, because I recommend Geonosians a long time ago. You hopefully at this point have your 7-star Wat Tam Bor, arguably one of the biggest barriers to getting Jedi Master Kenobi himself. And this is a great point in time too, because you just built up Jedi Anakin, a Sith Eternal. You have Qui-Gon to supercharge your Anakin Skywalker if you throw that Omicron on him. You already got Grandmaster Yoda, Cad Bane, Jango Fett. Jango Fett's farmable through the Houndstooth, so by the time you have a 7-star Houndstooth, you already got a 7-star Jango Fett. It all works out well and dandy. Just make sure you get your Negotiator when you can. I recommend the second you start getting the Guild Event Token 2 currency, Negotiator likely to be one of the first things that you farm. It's a bit of a grind, but it's going to be great having another capital ship in your arsenal. But once you have Master Kenobi, and then hopefully shortly after you have Commander Tano, or maybe even before, this is one of the best teams in the game. And he definitely is number 1 or maybe number 2, but I'm going to say in terms of PvP aspect, he beats every team with these, maybe with the exception of Reva, but that's a whole different ball game. Now, people might be surprised on what I'm about to offer next on the table. By the time you get here, there's probably going to be a 24, 2025 guide, so things could change. I would actually recommend, let's head it for Lord Vader first. That could be surprising if you know my opinion on Lord Vader, but it's not so much Lord Vader himself that I'm gunning for. It's the amazing requirements that Lord Vader has, such as General Anakin Skywalker. General Anakin Skywalker is one of the big foundations of going for Lord Vader. A great team overall. Getting General Anakin Skywalker has a lot of great requirements, but furthermore, when you go into Lord Vader asks for the Bad Batch, another amazing staple team in the game, kind of almost like the light side Imperial troopers. It's weird to say, but I find myself finding Lord Vader to be the secondary reward and the gas, the General Anakin Skywalker, the Bad Batch to be the primary rewards. But of course, Lord Vader being a galactic legend, it's still going to do good things. Maybe not the best galactic legend, but still a galactic legend nonetheless. And we're just going to kind of fill in the gaps at the very end. Where do the rest of the galactic legends sit at this point? It's weird to say Supreme Leader Kylo Ren used to be the first galactic legend I recommend, but with the game changing now, the Crate Dragon Raid, Rise of the Empire, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren might not be the first galactic legend to go for anymore, but still, he's a great galactic legend. Overall, decent bang per buck in terms of investment to power ratio. I recommend let's go for Supreme Leader Kylo Ren at this point. Now, keep in mind, if you're going for Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, you're going to need to make sure you get that finalizer up and running. The finalizer is going to be the biggest pain point. Bonus credit here, I would recommend, if you're building up to the finalizer, build up the TIE Echelon as a project next to it. It's not required for the finalizer, but it makes the finalizer so much better, and it gives you an accessible, free-to-play, off-meta Executor counter. So instead of having to use your Executor or some other big fleet to try to beat the Executor, you can instead use the finalizer as a ticket out of there. So I heavily recommend, highly recommend, almost mandate get the TIE Echelon if you're already getting Supreme Leader Kylo Ren in the finalizer. And then by order deduction, I would rate Galactic Legends Rey as the last galactic legend. She's got one of the weaker fleets. She's a great galactic legend though. She's one of the best for defense, especially if you have Ben Solo. It's just right now where the game sits, she doesn't offer a ton that finds itself to be on front of the line. Now, there are a couple other things lingering out there, like the Inquisitors. I personally did not like the Inquisitors. I didn't like Grand Inquisitor, but if you're in a guild that's doing Rise of the Empire, I heavily emphasize you maybe should move the Inquisitors a little bit earlier on so you can get Reva. But if you're nowhere near Reva, there's not really a ton of reason to go for the Inquisitors in my opinion at this point in time. Dr. Aphra is on this list. I wish she was kind of like Starkiller, where she kind of fits in somewhere a little bit smoothly. She's kind of out there in the open. Now, she's a good character. I think she's better than Starkiller outside of Grand Arena because she doesn't need Omicrons to work, but I'm putting Dr. Aphra here. Her requirements will be double jump farmable later on this year. It's a good character. It just doesn't seem to fit somewhere nicely. So unless you're looking for a fun side project, you want to build a Hondo, maybe you want a good character to lift up some of those Master Luke requirements that we built up a while ago, I'd say you don't really need to worry about Dr. Aphra, but it's a fun character, and it doesn't take too long to get up and running if you really wanted it. Now, at this point, we have some new stuff that came to the game, and we're waiting for it to settle in. Jedi Knight Calcast, at the time of this recording, was just unlocked. Changing the game too drastically, but he's great for Rise of the Empire. He's going to help out Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, and he can help some leftover Jedi teams beat, for example, Darth Malgus. This guide was technically made before Jedi Knight Calcast officially came out, and we didn't have a chance to test him yet, but I would say this, although it's here at the tail end, if you are looking for a great plugin for your Jedi Master Luke teams, or for your Jedi teams in general, you might want to scoot Jedi Knight Calcast a little bit earlier on. The good news is his requirements are only gear 12. Bad news is they're only single drop farmable right now, and you need a lot of Chirotech to get them up and running. And then lastly on this list, we don't know when this ship is coming out, the Leviathan, the big daddy capital ship that we were told is going to beat Executors, Profundities. But the issue is he's not in game yet. We don't know how good he is, but the number one problem I have is that he needs a lot of Relic 9s, but more more so, he needs 2 conquest units. You need a 7-star Darth Malgus, and you need a 7-star Fury class interceptor. And for most people, even at the time of this video, some veteran players, that is some steep requirements. And ladies and gentlemen, it is with absolute honor and privilege that this is going to be your 2023 best free-to-play farming guide. I hope the layout makes sense. Again, we're beelining for Executor, beelining for Jabba. We're trying to get you into that Crate Dragon raid as early as possible to start working on the Relic 8s, getting maybe some Relic 9s in your roster. We're building out so many foundational teams that are great for so many things in the early game that are going to carry you into the end game and all these projects, with a heavy emphasis on making sure you're farming ships. No matter the guide that you take on and your journey in Galaxy through, remember this, it's a personal journey. Do what you want to do. This, in my opinion, is the efficient way to be the most effective inside of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. One more time, I want to thank all of you guys for coming out, watching this video. It's one of my most watched series, and we put a lot of work into this because we understand that building up teams, it takes a long time, and we want to make sure we give you the best advice possible. So I want to thank you one more time for coming out. Leave that like, comment down below. Enjoy your journey in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I'll be along for the ride too. And always remember, it's great to be in the Empire today.